back. This time we're going to be talking about and kind of introducing the concept of validity and answering the question that you may have seen in your homework prompt of what's the construct. I'm going to tell you what a construct is and give you a basic sense of like how you can kind of figure out what the authors are trying to do. So this is where I really strongly disagree with David Funder. He's a very great, smart man, but I disagree with him in this one section. But he's not a methodologist, he's a personality psychologist, so it makes sense. So Funder argues that validity is this slippery concept, that its goal is to get at the ultimate truth of a measure. I would argue that, unlike the book's definition, which I will read for you here, the degree to which a measure actually reflects what one thinks or hopes it does is too narrow. It's aiming for this ultimate truth. But honestly, that is not a realistic way to think about validity, because it's really difficult to, or frankly impossible to know what constructs really are. Intelligence, honesty. So it's really difficult to know if we have something measured validly. But we can get a good handle on validity when you look beyond this vague ultimate truth. And I encourage you to, there's a whole area of causal inference, which I may know a lot about because it's one of my areas. But so you're gonna learn a little more than Funder's gonna cover. But I think of validity as a broader idea. Is this claim or relationship or result legitimate? Does it pass the smell test? Essentially, whatever you find, is it real? It's not as much about finding the exact correct way to measure a trait. It's more, does what it tell us, does what the broader study tell us, is it meaningful? So, because we are never going to find the truest perfect measure. We can't even do it for things we can see, like height. There's debate on what is the best way to measure height. Metric, imperial, units of Mason. I'm 1 Mason tall. For me, it's a really nice measure. But it's not very informative to anyone else. I mean, obviously, the world's not debating, how to measure things in units of my height. But if we still can't settle on one universal way to measure distance, it is not a realistic assumption to think, or quest to think if we can find the perfect way to measure something we can't even see. So there are two major areas of validity: internal validity and external. Now, internal validity is basically asking, is the evidence in this study supportive of our claim? But only within this study. So it's within whatever scope or parameters of your very specific study. And reliability kind of walks hand in hand with internal validity. So it's almost like an order of, a set of necessary conditions. So in order to have external validity, you need to have internal validity. And in order to have internal validity, you need to have reliability. So internal validity is, does your claim hold up within the context of whatever specific question you're asking within your data set? External validity is this evidence supportive of our claim beyond the study? Does it generalize outside our study? So internal validity's biggest kind of quest, or at least from a measurement standpoint, is measuring our latent construct, the big idea. So it's a construct in this definition right here, very subtle, hopefully. A construct is an idea about a psychological attribute that goes beyond what might be assessed in a particular measure. So it's not just how you scored on a specific IQ test. Like, if you top out on the Ravens, that doesn't mean that you're, like, have unlimited intelligence just because the Ravens matrices only goes up to 160. All that means, or maybe it's 145. Doesn't matter. But what it means is, like, the underlying thing that's causing you to perform that well on a test. So a construct is the thing we're trying to measure. The latent, true thing. Now, it's really difficult to measure a construct because for, like, personality or intelligence, we can't just hold up a ruler and say you have 5 feet of intelligence or 5 feet of personality. We can't. So what we do is we kind of triangulate. We assess personality in the same way that we test a theory. We gather lots of measures about it, as many as we can, and the goal here is to demonstrate that your measure associates with other measures. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you score highly on one measure of extroversion, you'll also score highly on other measures of extroversion because they're all trying to measure the same thing. They're all kind of triangulating towards this one true thing. The idea is that they hang together. So when you score high on one, you score high on another. If you score low on one, you score low on all the others. So to illustrate this and give you another definition, a construct is an individual difference, personality characteristic, or an attribute. We can't measure it directly. What we have to do is measure it indirectly. So we look at things that the construct is supposed to influence. And for personality kind of manifests itself in thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so we try and measure those. So we can literally count using kind of a behavioral measure, talking to others. And people who score more high, like talk to more others, would be more extroverted. Life outcome measures, we can see that extroverted people have more Facebook friends. And ideally, you want to measure that, like, all of these measures should move together. So talking to others should be correlated, and we'll talk about what a correlation is. So don't panic yet. Like life outcomes, number of Facebook friends, if your friends say you're chatty, if you say you're chatty, all of these things should kind of hang together, and they all help you kind of triangulate that unobservable thing, this circle. So how do you figure out, though, what a test is trying to measure? Like, how do you find the construct of an assessment? Because that's the burning question you likely have, because one of the upcoming kind of written assignments is for you to find an online quiz and tell me what the construct is. Now, so I'm going to use the moral alignments quiz and illustrate how you can do this. Now, if you have one really clear construct, then this is just going to be easy, but some of them are harder than others. And here's kind of the general approach. So for this quiz, it says there are 9 moral alignments. That doesn't mean we have 9 different constructs. What's actually happening is we're measuring 2 independent constructs in the same test. Now, how do I know this? Because I Googled this assessment. I looked up moral alignments. For those that play D&D, this is a fairly well-established way to kind of break people down and for characters. So here's our first kind of construct, good versus evil. So a good character or creature protects innocent life. So David Wallace is lawful good. We'll talk about the other construct later. But David Wallace is good, and Angela, using this metric, is evil because she this is not Angela specific, but evil characters and creatures debase or destroy innocent life, whether for fun or for profit. Now, where did I find these kind of anchors for for the two extreme ends, I found them on the internet, and I've provided the link here, because if someone has a theory behind their construct, use that theory. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't try and if now, not all tests are like this. Not all tests will have a theory behind them, but that's kind of part of the challenge. So next, our other construct is lawful versus chaotic. So here, lawful characters tell the truth. They keep their word. They respect authority, honor tradition, and judge those who fall short. Versus someone who is chaotic. These characters kind of follow their own conscience and resent being told what to do. They do favor new ideas over tradition and do what they promise if they feel like it. That's chaotic. And neutral is you're somewhere in the middle. Now, here, I've got another number, so 3 of them. Now, when we combine them, we get the nine alignments. We have multi-dimensional. So this is a 2-dimensional assessment. So you have 2 constructs. One is good versus evil, this direction, and the other is lawful versus chaotic. And so chaotic evil is prison Mike, while chaotic good is just regular Mike. That's the idea. So one strategy is to, if you have, is to and even if you document this kind of approach and discover that there is no method, that's fine. You just have to document it and then make a guess about what you think it is, given what you have. So here, I would work backwards. So I had theory, and that was very helpful, but let's say I was just presented with this diagram. First, I would get all the different outcomes and try and map them, see if there's a method by taking the test. If this was a test, take the test multiple times. Once I have a basic idea what I think the constructs are, is I then take the test and kind of make the stereotype version of those. So if I was really interested in measuring, figuring out if I was right, and I was pretty sure that Prison Mike was chaotic evil, I would answer the questions with those 2 constructs and extremes in mind and see if I got them. So I would test my hypothesis on the test to see if I got what I was supposed to. Sometimes they give you the scoring metric, and that's wonderful. If they give you that, you're in business. But most BuzzFeed quizzes, they don't give you that, and you have to kind of divine what's happening, which is fun, I think, and is a really useful skill. Now, for those of you who use R, here's another version of the alignment using different ways to grab a vector, or we'll grab one variable from a data frame. I would argue that a true chaotic evil is them at random, but the function here is pretty awful. So yeah, but anyway, that's it for this lecture. I will see you later, and